How's it going, traders? In today's video, we're going to be talking about a simple trendline break strategy and how to implement it in your trading effectively, start to finish, the full strategy. Let's go ahead and jump into the video right now. So hello traders and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick. I make all sorts of Forex content here on YouTube for free. I do ask if my content is helpful to you, give this video a thumbs up down below and maybe share it with a friend. So we're going to be talking about a trendline break strategy. This is a topic or a concept or a strategy that I absolutely love. I have used it and looked at for quite some time in my own trading for opportunities like the one I'm going to show you guys here on the chart, as well as break down the whys and the hows, the entry and the potential exit of these sorts of trades. Now, when we're talking about a trendline break strategy, if you don't know what I mean by a trendline break strategy, essentially the idea here is that we have some sort of market that is moving in a trending format, right? And when we're talking about markets, markets are tending to do one of two things. They're either trending or they are ranging. And most of the time, the market tends to range back and forth. But occasionally we get trends where the market will move in one particular direction extensively. However, the thing about trends is that they at some point come to an end. The old saying is the trend is your friend until the end, right? Well, this strategy, the concept of a trendline break strategy, is in some ways looking to catch the end of a trend and the start of a new one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a way that you could potentially catch the end of one downtrend or uptrend and the start of a new uptrend or downtrend, right? The inverted, right? So when we have a market that's going like this, right? When we have a market that's moving to the downside, we, for the most part, don't want to try and fight this move, right? For the most part, the market is continuing to trend to the downside, and for good reason, right? The trend is your friend in most cases until the end. So how do we spot an end? Well, this is what we're going to be doing with this particular strategy is we're going to be looking for this structure here, that pretty beautiful thing. We're going to be the bad guys that are looking to see that thing end, right? We're going to be looking to take advantage of a breakdown of this price pattern and of this price movement, right? So now that we see that this is going on, what we're going to be looking for, this is our downtrend line. Notice how as price comes into this level of trend line, right? We have that level, that trend line that kind of smoothly goes across this trend. As price comes into it, it sells off, right? Well, us as trendline break strategy traders we're going to be looking to see this structure break down. Well, what does that mean? Well, price, we're looking for it to break that pattern of moving cleanly to the downside, and we're going to look to catch the momentum of a market that's moving up and starting a start of a new trend. Notice that initially we were in a downtrend, right? And we're looking for signs of a start to an uptrend. And the cool thing about this strategy, guys, the cool thing and the reason that I really like the idea of a trendline break strategy is that we're looking to catch the start of what could be a new trend, right? Because a lot of times what we see is that the market will be in a downtrend, it'll chop around for a bit and then decide to break out to the upside along maybe a trend line or a significant level of resistance, push past that level, come back for a retest and continue higher. And that's exactly how we're going to look to enter these sorts of trades. Is the first step for us to look for trendline break strategies is we need to identify a trend line. So what I have here is an actual example on the charts. I'll clean everything up and you can see that we're looking at dollar Canadian on a daily chart. Now this strategy that I'm talking about is not necessarily time frame dependent. You'll probably want to test out whatever you decide to look at, right? But I'm just looking at the daily chart because I find the daily chart to be very clean and very easy to read as each single bar represents an entire day of trading action. I know that's pretty obvious, but for newer traders, I like to clarify each one of these bars is one full day. So the signals that we get or the trading action that goes on in a particular day is a little bit cleaner than some of the noise we get on the 5-minute and the 15-minute chart, which has a lot more kind of random back and forth noise throughout the day, right? A full day has an entire day of information and trading into it, which is an interesting little concept. So just a little side note, when you are back testing or trading around with this concept, test different strategies or test different time frames to this particular strategy to see how you like it. So we're looking here at USD CAD on the daily chart. And we've identified a downtrend structure here. Well, how do we know what a downtrend structure is? Well, if you don't know how to draw trend lines, then drawing trend lines I have a video on it that you can check out. I'll link it up here. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to actually draw trend lines, there'll be information there. So with that said, we have a downtrend structure, right? Which is basically a series of lower highs, right? And so we see that structure, which is indicating that we have a bearish trend. We have 3 there. We've drawn a trend line across the way. And here we go. We have a strong downtrend. Okay, so we're not necessarily looking to try and buy into this market because, again, the market is moving down. The dominant market direction for the time being is looking bearish. However, there may come some opportunity for buyers that are patient enough to wait for some signs of a potential reversal, right? Could you have known that price was going to rally and break through this trend line at this point? Well, maybe if there was some other technical indicator, but for this particular style, we're going to be looking for a technical break of this structure. Remember how I mentioned right over here, we're putting in lower highs. What that means is that price is failing to break and close above this significant trend line. So we've drawn our trend line, we've identified lower highs, and we don't have any sort of significant break of structure just yet until we get to this point right here. Well, let's break down what happens right here. Price comes up into this area, and what you see is right here on this particular bar, price tried to go lower. It tried to respect that dominant market direction to the downside, but it failed. In fact, it failed and we broke above and closed above this trend line level of resistance right here. Notice how price got above that trend line and notably closed above the trend line. Right? The green candle there, it completely closed outside of that trend line, which is the first sign here that we may have a continuation to the upside and that we may have an opportunity to look for buy action. Now, with this particular style, this particular strategy, I'm going to share how I like to look for these opportunities, which is not necessarily to just buy right here, right? Just because we have a close, I'm still going to wait for a good opportunity in the form of a pullback, right? So we have a breakout, right? We have a break of structure right here. The market has disrespected this level, and as buyers of a potential market direction change, this might be a place to look for opportunity, but I want to wait for a pullback. Well, where would that pullback be, right? Going back to our example of a downtrend structure, right? Or let me try that again, right? We have a downtrend structure here in this market. Well, I'm going to look for some sort of break out of this structure, right? So let's draw our trend line. And I'm going to look for an opportunity to get involved on a pullback. See how price broke through this hypothetical trend line, right? And pulled back to that area, back to the trend line and found support there. Well, what's crazy is when you start playing around with the charts and you spend some time back testing this concept, guys, you'll see that this happens again and again in the markets. The markets constantly are testing significant points of value on the chart. And this level right here is hypothetically a point of value, right? As price pulls back to a trend line that has recently been broken, buyers are likely going to try to hold that level and to push price off of that trend line to start a new trend. And that's exactly what we see here when we go back to our chart example, right? We see price break above this level and pull back. So we get the break, we get the close, price starts to pull back here and finds support on this trend line. Okay, so how do we get involved? Well, in fact, there's a couple things that I really like about this particular setup. You can see we also have a pin bar there. And if you've looked through my channel, I have a couple videos on this particular topic. The pin bar trading pattern is a beautiful little entry that you can use as part of your entry here. That would be one way to add a confluence factor to your trading here, is to add maybe a candlestick pattern that you like to look for. But that aside, the whole concept here is that we would look to get involved on the long side on a retest of this trend line structure. Right, so as price comes into this area, we would be looking to take some sort of buy opportunity after that initial show of bullish strength. So as price pulls back, we get involved on the long side here. And well, where should we target and what should we do if we're wrong? If you watch my channel for a while, you know that my concept is not so much what do we do if we're right, it's what do we do if we're wrong. And so my concept here is there's a couple different things that you can play around with. There's not some sort of perfect every single time works, right? You might try maybe using a set number of pips stop loss, right? If you like to use a stop loss of 50 pips, maybe you do something like that. If you're trading the daily chart, you might have to change it depending on your time frame or whatever you're looking at, right? Different pairs move differently. But for the most part, you want to either have a set stop loss or you want to have a structure set up. Now, if you don't know what that means, I like to use structure as part of my entries and exits. So if we take a look left, this level here looks like a pretty interesting level to me, right? This level of support became resistance. And so if price significantly breaks underneath that level, then I probably want to get out of the trade because price may just be kind of faking out and return back to a downtrend, right? So we want to get out of the trade relatively quickly if we're wrong. So how can we do that? Well, I've identified this structure looking left. So one idea would be to put a stop loss maybe underneath that structure, give it a little bit of room. And that looks like a pretty decent stop loss. Now, I do realize that I'm looking at this chart after it's already moved in my favor. And the point of that is to give a clean example so that you guys can actually see how the setup actually works. And then the reality is that it's not always going to work out so perfectly, right? There's going to be times where you enter a trade and then price is going to kind of chop around and get you stopped out. That's the reality of trading, is we're never going to hit it perfectly, right? So with that said, we have a buy opportunity on this trend line retest, right? We've broken, we've retested, and we're looking for buy opportunities. Well, that's where we put a stop loss using structure. That was just one theoretical example. How about a take profit? Where can we set a target for our trade here? Well, again, I'm going to use the same concept that I used recently, which is I'm going to look for structure. And to me, this level looks really good right here. Now you can see if we set this as our take profit, the reason I would choose this level, and I know, again, I'm using in hindsight, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I would look for this opportunity because, again, the market really likes to retest significant structure points, right? And this level historically was very, very kind of significant. Price found sellers very fresh at that area. So if price continues to rise, I'm likely going to look to get out of the trade at a particular level like that. So again, in this trade, this would have been great. Of course, in the example, it's going to work out, but not every single trade is going to be working out for you, right? The idea here is that you get ideas, that you play around with the concept, and that you can see this setup in a good format first so that you can understand what it looks like for when you're back testing and when you're coming up with a strategy. So let's recap a little bit. We have a downtrend structure, and this works again for the uptrend structure as well. If you see a move it to the upside, then we get a break to the downside, there's opportunities to look for that particular setup as well. But for the time being, we're looking at a sell trend example. And again, we have that downtrend structure. We're putting in lower highs along the way. And on a break of structure and a retest of structure, we could look to get long to ride that momentum. Now let's think just briefly here. Why would buyers be interested in pushing price up from here? Well, we've seen an excess of buyers step into this market in order to break that structure. That's the first sign to both buyers and sellers that we might have a shift in the momentum of the market. Buyers are exceeding sellers. That's what that means when price breaks through a significant level. So on a retest, buyers are going to potentially be more confident and more willing to buy into this market and push price further to the upside and defend their recent victory, right? This is a bullish victory when price breaks above a significant level. And so buyers may be looking to defend that. Guys, I hope this strategy was helpful to you. Make sure again that you smash that thumbs up button down below if this video was helpful to you, and make sure you subscribe for more free Forex content here on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.